Hi, I'm Joshua Finn with J&H Aerospace. Today we're going to build the 2020 Protege Science Olympiad gliders. Rather, I should say they are compliant with Science Olympiad regulations. We're not official Science Olympiad representatives. We manufacture these gliders for Science Olympiad Elastic Launch Glider Competition, and they are eligible for the 2020 competitions. They meet the restrictions for them. You have two options. This kit builds either one of these. You build 3 airplanes, and these airplanes meet the new design specs for the J&H Aerospace launcher because we have skids on them. The other glider, of course, is our Canard version. You're using all of the same parts, just changing how you arrange them on the carbon fuselage. So let's get started, and hopefully you'll be able to produce a very competitive airplane. We've tested these out; they fly quite well. When you get your kit for your Protege 2020s, you get a bag with a bunch of parts in it. So let's look and see what's in the bag. So there's some very important information in here due to the fact that this is kind of what's called a duplex kit, and that you can build it as several different configurations. The documentation contained in here is very, very important. So do not throw away your paperwork. First of all, you're going to have 3 carbon fuselages. These are 15 3/4 inches long. Next, you'll have 3 sheets of 1/32 inch balsa, and these have some of your side plates for the nose, and they have the wingtips and the stabilizer leading edge. Let's open here. Next, you're going to have some more 1/32 balsa. You'll have 3 sheets of it, if I can get them apart. Here we go. You should have occasionally little parts like this that hang on there. These are your wing leading edges, your pylons, and your center core for your nose bumper. Then you'll have your Dihedral Gage. You will have 3 sheets of relatively thin foam. Be careful with this stuff because you can bend it and whatnot, and it makes getting alignment difficult. It is fairly strong foam, but just be gentle with it so that you don't bend it up. Next, you're going to have 3 little pieces of carbon fiber. Now, if you're using another manufacturer's launcher, or if you're using just the stick and rubber band launcher, these are not going to be necessary. But if you are using these with the precision launcher, the deluxe launcher, sorry, that we produce, you're going to need these bumpers to keep the tail of the airplane from being damaged by the launcher. You'll have a strip of thin rubber. This is rubber for use with the stick style launcher. If you're using the deluxe launcher, it comes with rubber that is sized for it. And then, of course, your catapult stick that we mentioned, and some balancing clay. So let's also briefly take a peek in here, because this is going to be very important since we're building we're going to show you how to build 2 styles of airplanes. This documentation sheet shows you the placement of everything relative to the ends of the carbon rod, and also talks about the recommended center of gravity location. And this is very important information as you're building this aircraft. Similar information is provided for the conventional build, which show where the recommended center of gravity is, and so forth and so on. This is, again, very, very important information for how to make this airplane work and fly well, and so you need to keep that around. Lastly, these are patterns. Should you break any parts or what have you, this allows you to replicate the aircraft. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build out 2 sets of flying surfaces for this aircraft And then after we've done that, we'll assemble them into two different airplanes, a Canard and a conventional airplane. So we're going to kind of just show the duplicate efforts on that, or not show the duplicate efforts, I should say. So you'll see how it's done, and then we'll show how to assemble the aircraft to get what you're looking for. So let's start by popping out some wing parts here. Let me get these fuselages out of the way, because these are not going to be used until much later in the game. So you want to pop your wings out of here. And then we will take one of these sets of wingtips and whatnot. We'll go ahead and pop out the wingtips here. I recommend do not just go popping everything out of these part sheets, just take stuff as it's needed. So here we're going to go ahead and assemble these wings. On the trailing edge of these wings, go in here and whack the burrs off real quick. Same thing with these wingtips, just this straight part right now. Don't need to sand any other parts of it at the moment. And now we'll take some CA. I recommend Gorilla Medium CA for this task. This is my preferred brand of CA glue. There are others that work well, but this is just what I've had the most success with on these airplanes. And if you can't tell, I go through a lot of it, which is why this bottle is nearly empty, and it was not so nearly empty this morning. There we go. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a mirror image over here on the other side. And don't do this on, you want to do this on the leading edge and not on the wingtip. And that way you don't get glue out there into this area where your flaps are going to attach. So we'll lay these guys down here like that. And now let's pop out a set of our wing flaps. Now the wing flaps will also have those little burrs, and you cannot sand this flap material, so you want to cut those little bits off. And there's only 2 per flap, and they're on this face right here. Now at this point, what I can do is come in here and I'm going to try to get these flaps down flush as much as possible here. They may have some curvature to them. That's not really that critically important. The main thing is that I hold this wing down flat and get the flap down flat. And so we don't want to overuse our glue or anything, just enough to get a solid bead all the way down here. Now, this glue is somewhat, I don't really understand the chemical interaction, but the glue is somewhat retarded by the foam. So what you're going to want to do is take CA Accelerator and just dip it along the glue line here. This is very important. Only dip it along the glue line. And I'll explain why in just a second. And wipe off any excess. The reason for this is the accelerator tends to soften these flaps and it warps them. So just use only enough. Now I've got a spot that didn't harden all the way, so I'm going to come back with some more accelerator on that. Now I'm going to flip this wing back over like that, because we want to differentiate between these. And the flap material is a different thickness from the balsa. So now we have two wing panels. Let me scoop some of this out of the way while I do this. There we go. And now, got all of that in there real good. We'll flip this wing over as well. So now they're both upright. We're going to set the wings aside for a minute. We're going to build the tail, and then we'll come back. So I'm going to pop out my horizontal tail piece, if you will. And then I'm going to come back to this wingtip sheet. I'm going to pop this guy loose. Now, if you look closely, you'll see there's a little laser burr here on this flap face. Just come along, whack that off, smooth the whole trailing edge with it. And now, lay this guy down, take your the foam portion of your horizontal tail and put glue down on it. Now we can come in here just like that. And we'll hit it with accelerator again. Actually gluing the razor blade to it. Alright, so we've got that done. Now we can set the glue aside for a minute and we'll do some sanding. So on this horizontal tail, what I recommend doing is just go around and round off the leading edge. You just need a very, very light sanding here. All we're trying to do is improve the aerodynamics a little bit. Now, if you're really concerned about reducing weight, you can sand this whole thing down to the thickness of the foam. However, I don't think that's anywhere remotely necessary. If you detect that this is a particularly heavy piece of wood, then you might want to do that. Next, we're going to come in here with our wings. Remember, these are right side up. Even if the flaps are curved up, we'll address that in a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to come along with sandpaper and we're going to bevel the leading edge of the wing. I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but we're not doing a curved leading edge. I'm trying not to do what I did where I just gouged the leading edge of my wing. What we're just doing is we're beveling this. It may show up a little bit. You can kind of make out the fact that this is just beveled. It's not curved, it's just beveled, coming back just a short distance. And that's all of the airfoiling we're doing on this wing. And you will do this all the way around to the tip. And then we'll come in and sand the glue lines on this wing. I'm doing this very gently, not trying to sand down or anything like that. All I'm wanting to do is to deburr this so that it's aerodynamically good. Nothing further. Come over here and we're going to do the same thing. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to bevel the wing root area here just a little bit. Nothing particularly special. And then we'll do a quick test fit. And I've kind of curved this around a little bit, so when I come back I'm going to clean up the center here. And there we go. Looking a little bit better. Now let's go get our dihedral gauge here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to glue these two wedges together, like so. And there we go. Now we're going to take our wing here, we're going to glue one of the wing roots, set the other one here against it, and there we go. And I'll get some accelerator and we'll harden that on up. You want to make sure that these are equal together, not warped or anything. And I'm a little bugged by that flap that's kind of bent up there. So you want to kind of watch that. This really thin vector board foam has a tendency to do some a little bit wonky stuff like that. Alright, so at this point we have two sets of flying surfaces. We haven't popped the rudder out, but or vertical fin, sorry. But you can go ahead and pull it out as well. And so there you go. You've got your three sets of flying surfaces. We're going to come back and we'll have another set of these, and then we'll show the assembly process. Okay, so we have now got two sets of wings because we've got one over here, and we've got the first set that we ran off. And now we're going to start bringing fuselages and all that into play. So come over here and get one of your... Oops, that was graceful. And this is a little learning lesson to you. Get a paper towel in play here. that stuff away from your vector board. Now, we're going to come back in here, we're going to pop one of these pylons loose. Now, you want to be very careful as you're popping your pylon loose, because the grain goes this way, so this is a very fragile part. You want to make sure that you don't force it out, instead get it loose, and just gently work that part out. Now, what we're going to do with that part is we're going to flip one of our wings over here. We're going to run a glue joint, or a glue line right along the dihedral joint, and we're going to attach it like so. Now, this is only if you're building in the conventional setup. So we'll finish it out and then we'll come back and we'll build the other one. Now, the next thing you'll want to do is get your sheet out that describes the conventional layout here. And it is going to say that from the front of the carbon rod, not the front of the nose, but from the front of the carbon rod to the front of the pylon is 5 3/8 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this rod down here, measure up 5 3/8 inches. I'll turn this around actually. Or I can start over. So now I'm going to come back here, I'm going to put glue on my pylon. And then I'm going to line all of that up here. I want the pylon to be centered. Nah, messed it up. I want the pylon to be centered on this fuselage. Now, all of this alignment is in the manner of what you put into the airplane is what you will get out. So getting proper alignment here is critical to getting a good flying airplane. Everything needs to be lined up straight and smooth. So the bottom line is that this joint right here needs to be parallel to that fuselage. Now, if the pylon ends up tilted off one side or the other, that's not a huge deal. It does affect trim, but nothing like this alignment side to side of the wing. And the next thing is we're going to look in our instructions should say that 5/8 from the 5/8 from the back of the carbon, the end of the carbon tail here, is where our horizontal stab should be. So we're going to go underneath here. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to grab our our horizontal stab. It's okay if it has some curl to it, that's fine. We're going to, if you remember, this is thicker and we laid it down flat, so this top side here, the foam is flush. So that's what we're going to use as the top. It's just so that it attaches better. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up like so. And my important thing is I want to set this up. You can see the tail here. I don't know if it's showing up well on camera, but I don't want any tail tilt either way. I want to see, if I take this angle right here, you can see that the tip of the horizontal stab is level with the flap there and there if I line things up like that. Once I've gotten that exact arrangement, I'm going to come in here with CA accelerator. I'm going to again verify I got that right. And now I'm going to make it permanent. Just like that. So now I have the proper alignment. And again, don't use too much of that accelerator. Now we have a fin over here, and we're simply going to glue this on one side here. Now, I actually got a little too much CA on here, so if I look at how this is sitting, it ends up with the back of this fin stuck off this way. That's okay because I'm right-handed and I want the airplane to turn to the right. So I want some right fin offset. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put some glue along the bottom of this guy. And I'm going to line it up on here. Like that. Now it is very important that the full length of the fin be attached. You don't want the trailing edge able to flop around. You want it attached along with everything else. And then just make sure it's more or less straight up and down relative to everything else. Hit that again with just enough accelerator to get the job done. No extra so we don't warp the tail or anything. And there we go. Next we're going to come up front, pop loose the core of our nose assembly, and we'll find one of these guys over here. Put glue on this piece right here like so, and we're going to attach one of these side pieces to it. So you end up with this arrangement. And now we want this to be more or less straight up and down on here like so. So I'm going to squirt glue in that slot. I'm going to stick it on there and glue it to my hand. There we go, let's unglue it. And now we see that it's kind of tilted, so I'm going to try to bring that back into the vertical. And there we go. At that point we'll come over here and we'll hit this guy with glue again. And we'll put the other piece on here. We'll attempt to. Now one of the things you'll notice is that this is not a particularly good fit at first, because that core is significantly thinner than the carbon rod. So what you want to do is just squish this together and it'll smush the balsa just enough to lock everything in. And then you make another check once again that it's vertical. I got it tilted off to one side a little bit, so we'll just kind of shape it back out. And this one to stay, which probably is not that big of a deal, but there we go. Now you can sand this round and whatnot, that's up to you. You're going to put enough clay on this that it probably isn't going to matter. And the next thing you're going to want to do is come back here to the tail and take one of these bumpers and punch it through. I punched it on the wrong side. We want to punch it on this side with a vertical tail, because you want it to come up alongside. If I can hold it, yeah, you want it to come up along the side of the vertical tail right there like that. Now, again, that's only if you're using our deluxe launcher. The other launch strategies do not require this, but I'm going to show it because those of you that are going the full high precision route, you will need this to keep your glider from getting damaged. And then, you notice I pulled it up almost to the leading edge there. That just gives it a nice strong fit, and that way it doesn't get damaged and come flying off on an official flight and get you disqualified for ejecting a part from the airplane. And there we go. Now the center of gravity for starting goes right here at the apex. And we'll come back to that in a minute. The big thing is now I'm going to come out here to the wingtips and I'm going to make a slit like this. Make another one beside it. And you may want to use a ruler for this. I've just done this so many times I know how. And so what I've got is I've got this little strip that's coming out of here, like that. And so you see I've got this thin gap. Do the same thing over here on the other side. Force him too. And now we can bend our flaps down a little bit. And we can get that nice curvature that flapped gliders are known for. There we go. All ready to go. Except for balancing and whatnot. And this one's definitely going to take some clay. Alright, we'll be right back. Okay, so we have showed the process for building out but not balancing the conventional Protege. Now we're going to show how to build the Canard. So here is the general arrangement drawing. We see 3.5 inches back from the leading edge, or from the front of the carbon rod, not the nose, is where the pylon is going to go. 7/8 of an inch back from the back of the carbon rod is where the trailing edge of the wing goes. 1/8 behind it is where the fin goes. So we'll take a carbon rod here. We will find a pylon here, and again, same arrangement. Be very careful as you're cutting this out so that you don't break it, because it is a fragile little component. Come out of there. And now we're going to take our horizontal tail. I'm going to put the bumpy kind of part up here, and so we'll put the smooth part where we're flush. We're going to put that on the bottom. So we're going to run a bead of glue along the bottom of this guy. There's a notch front and back to show you where the center line is. And you can be super clumsy like me. Line the pylon up with the front of the wing. It does not go all the way, front of the wing, front of the stab. It does not go all the way to the back, and that's okay. You do want it to adhere all the way back, though. Mine's being a little ordinary about that. There we go. Now, like we said, 3.5 inches back from the leading edge of the wing. That's not how it is. So I'm going to take glue here. I'm going to plop this pylon down on here. Now, in spite of there being no dihedral in the Canard, it is very important that you get this guy lined up on here perfectly, or as close to it as possible. And here is why. This pylon acts like a forward rudder, and if it is offset either way, it will influence your launches. So you don't want that. And there we go. Next, we're going to come in and set up our tail, or our wing, sorry. Try to get the flaps kind of level back here. Nothing special with them. This one's got some glue here, so I'm going to sand a bit of a flat in it because it doesn't already have one. I come back here. I'm going to plot off, what is that, 7/8 of an inch at the back. I'm going to put glue on here. Line that up. Now, it is very important as you're doing this that you get the wing lined up correctly this way, that the join is parallel on our wing, and also we want to start out with no tilt at all. Tilt will become important later, but initially no tilt. So like that. Next thing we're going to do is track down wherever, oh, here we go. Here's my vertical fin. And so what we're going to do with it, we're going to put glue on it. And we'll stick this back here. I'm sticking it on the side, leaving about 1/8 of an inch sticking out back here. Now you may find this is a little hard to grab hold of, so if you find that to be the case, take one of these diamonds or something like that, or this piece right here, whatever you want to do, and you can glue a balsa grip on top of here. And that's all this is for, is if you're having trouble getting a hold of the airplane. There we go. Mine is kind of tilting off to one side. There we go. And that just gives you a little more surface area to grab a hold of at the back of the plane. We'll come back and we'll put the skid on here in a minute. First of all, let's come up front and we're going to put the nose piece on. Nose hook, nose of the plane, something like that. Got that part, and we'll get the two side plates over here. Excuse a little bit of noise in the background. My wife is impatiently wanting dessert, and I don't blame her because it's late. Terribly, terribly late. That's how we do business at J&H Aerospace. Work late into the night, every night. So the same assembly process on this hook as before. I come up front with it, squirt glue in the slot, stick the fuselage in the slot, glue it to our fingers again. Kind of line it up, try to get it parallel to everything vertically, because it makes us feel better about our gliders and actually has shockingly little influence. And there it goes, it's on there. Last thing is, of course, the skid that I mentioned. And what you're going to want to do is use this skid in this scenario as a reinforcement of this vertical tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on this guy, stick it back on here. Nah, that was terrible. Have enough glue up at the top of it. There we go. Try not to let it hang up on that flap too much, and you may want to trim the root of the flap a little bit to clear it, because you want your flaps to be able to flex freely without any influence from that guy. And there we are. And that's fairly stable. You're going to see some flexing and whatnot with this arrangement, so you want to be pretty careful to ensure that it's fully glued in. Because on launch, that thing gets whacked pretty hard. And there you go. So that's your arrangement for the Canard. Now the other thing is, Check our CG on this little guy. We'll let it flip over. It's balancing right about there. And that is 1 inch ahead of the leading edge of the wing. Exactly. So that means this one came out exactly on balance. The instructions say, or not just the instructions, my research indicates that's about the optimum CG for this guy. So we'll come back to that in a minute. And we'll look at this one. Now you notice we did not slot the wings on this one. So very important to remember. This one's a little wonky there. Alright, so this one needs clay on it, because it's tail heavy. So I'm going to squirt some CA on the front here, and I'm going to stick a dab of clay on here, like that. Now I'm going to check the CG again. I'll actually throw it on one of my J&H Aerospace glider balancers. And we'll see that now it's a slight bit nose heavy. And now it's right about right. Maybe a little tail heavy, but pretty close. Now before we proceed any further, we want to go get a scale and weigh these to verify that they're legal for competition. Okay, so we have a scale here. We're going to put this glider on the scale. And we find that it weighs 3.364, so it's legal. Just over the minimum weight a little bit. Then we'll put the Canard on here. The Canard is 3.264, so they're very close. So we don't have to add ballast to either one to make it legal. So now we'll do some very basic flight trim that does the prep work for getting these airplanes flying. Here at J&H Aerospace, we already have quite a collection of videos together on trimming indoor gliders. So we are going to produce another one this year just so that it's out there for you guys. But I recommend looking at our historic videos on trimming flapped indoor gliders because we've got lots of tips and tricks. There'll be links down in the description for resource pages and so on. So the historic previous year's videos on those topics are still relevant this year. So go back and look at that information. It's a foundation of knowledge that we're building upon. Now what we're going to start with on these gliders that we always look for is we want to have this airplane set up. Assuming you're right-handed, you'll reverse this if you're left-handed, but you're going to want this airplane to launch straight up. Well, not straight up here. We're going to launch it up, though, at a steep angle, and you're going to want it to slide off to the right, and then it's going to level its wings and enter the glide. So some important principles are required for that. In order to get the airplane to swing to the right, it needs some rudder offset to the right. We already, on this one in the video, we got a glob of CA back there by accident, and we just use that as a convenient opportunity to get some right rudder in there. Next, we want to look at our wings, and we want to see that this wing is deflected up this way more than this one. If we look at this video, I'm going to check this here. We can see that the flap on this side is deflected down more. But if you look just at the wooden part, they're about the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this left wing and I'm going to twist it up like this just a little bit. You can hear some cracking in the wood. It's a good thing. I know that sounds alarming because we just built this beautiful airplane and now we're breaking parts of it. That's okay. Now we'll come back and look at this. We want to make sure we have flapped camber all the way out. We don't want too much camber. Too much on the regular Proteges is the kiss of death for really good flying performance. Not enough is also not good. And then we'll just look at the horizontal tail here, and there's a little bit of warping in it. We'll just see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test glide this airplane, and installed. I didn't have the best launch though. Alright, so try this again. I don't know how well that showed up. What we saw there was just a very nice glide. The airplane held a almost nose-high attitude throughout. That's pretty much perfect. But we don't really know what's going to happen. So I'm going to get you, this is about as far as we'll be able to get, is where we're going to start chucking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this airplane like this, and I'm going to chuck it horizontally and see what it does. Okay, that was incorrect, and I'll explain why. When I launched this airplane, it went straight out and just pitched up. It didn't pitch up excessively, but what it failed to do was to go out and start tracking off to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rudder here, I'm going to bend it like that. See that little bit right there that I just bent in? And you notice I can crease this. I don't know how well that shows up. I can crease this all the way over. It'll stay. So that's what we're doing. That may be a little too much. We don't know. We're going to chuck it again and find out. Oh, that was better. So it probably went out of frame there a little bit, but as the airplane pitched up, it started peeling off to the right, and it made a very nice transition right under the ceiling and glided into the wall. Unfortunately, I can't do anything further with that at this stage, but I can tell you that establishes basic trim that'll get you flying with this airplane. So things that we looked for this balsa portion on the left wing to be angled down. That's called washout relative to the right wing. We looked for some right rudder there. We looked with our CG for the airplane to glide correctly. So if the airplane had dived with that CG, if I test glided the airplane and it nosed in, I would bend the left side trailing edge of the stab up. Conversely, with that CG, if I had test glided the airplane and it had stalled, I would come over to this side and bend it down. This is the right side. I'm not going to get into all the logic of why that is. So that's our basic trim for the conventional one. Let's look at the Canard. The Canard, frankly, we're getting into a researchy thing. We don't know what this is going to do. So I've CG'd this airplane. I've looked at everything is straight, not warped. No curvature in my flaps. I don't want any. So we're going to give it a test glide. I think this is going to dive, but I'm not sure. So we're holding it about the CG, test launch it, and it did exactly what I expected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Canard here, I'm going to bend trailing edge down like that on both sides, just like that. That's probably a little too much, but let's see what happens. Pretty nice. Alright, so we're going to bend these down just a little bit more because it was gliding a little bit nose heavy yet. The other thing is the airplane's flying straight, so I'm going to give it some left rudder. Be very careful with this left rudder. It is extremely effective on this airplane and will drastically affect your launch, and I don't really know how to counteract that on Canards, unfortunately. That's one of those researchy parts of this. If y'all find out, let me know, by the way. And there we go. That was a pretty nice glide. I think that amount of left rudder might be right rudder might be a little too much. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take this left wing, and I'm going to do that same washout thing in it, like so. Sounds terrible, doesn't it? Looks terrible. Let's see what that does for us. there we go. Beautiful. This has been the building video for the Protege 2020 by J&H Aerospace for Science Olympiad Elastic Launch Glider. I'm Joshua Finn. If you have questions and comments, please put them in the comment section down below. There will be a link at some point to a trimming video where we go out and we trim these indoors. Again, go to our resource pages and you can find lots of historic information on trimming gliders. Unfortunately, not so much on Canards because we don't know a whole lot about Canards collectively as a model airplane community in this particular flying context. So we're still working on that. But again, questions, comments, put them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.